water and salt.
$6 billion of land go to waste every year, because salt is accumulating in the soil. How do we get rid of the salt in the soil? What's the land worth in Australia if I can get rid of the salt? Where does the salt come from? Salt came in over 10, 20, 30,000 years from the sea. It's blown in, but okay? So it's accumulated, and now nothing can grow in more and more land in Australia. So salt is killing the land. The land is worth $4,000. What's the water going to be worth to flush that salt out? $200. So I exaggerate. It is about 20-fold. We're going to build 20 times more power. Sorry. So what you do is you have wells everywhere in Australia. And what you're going to do is you take that water, send it through the purifier, and irrigate the land. Push the salt down into the well. What's happened to the salt? The salt concentrate that comes out of this machine, you put it into a solar's little pond, evaporates, and you get a salt cake, and they take it to the sea. Ship it out by truck. What have you done? You're recovering $4,000 per acre of land using not only $20 to $30 worth of water. Nice trick. Okay? You thought it out, and thought it out, and thought it out at 3 levels. Most people create an invention and don't know what the heck is going to happen to it. Okay? Most people. If you can think deeply, you'll find a better and better and better market. So the capacity of the ionizer is a nice product, but if it's tied to a solar cell, it's magically good. Right? Because where do we need fresh water normally? Deserts, things like that, right? Where do we find glass salt water? Adjacent to like people like Saudi Arabia, with lots of salt and lots of what? Something. Salty water? Sunlight? We got it. Okay. So, but what would you do that's more valuable? Produce land. I can have a machine that just walks from one well to the next and purifies and just, right. And you know what? You can do it. Unilever went out and did it. Much to my chagrin. Okay, so here's the point. Business method. Thinking out deeply. Thinking way out of the box and never stop thinking. Most people would say, let's tie a shovel cell to the thing and we'll have a better problem. They would never have anticipated the Australians would immediately say, let's start producing land. Much more valuable. I take this chicken shit invention, tie it to a solar cell, which is an old invention, and now I've got a machine that actually doesn't produce water, it produces land. Much more valuable. I've changed the problem. I've redefined it because they didn't define it correctly. I don't want to produce water, I want to produce land. It's 20 times more valuable. Now we can what? Make food. Okay? Which is what the Australians did. Okay? Now, when you take the salt out of soil, can it ever return? No. Not in the history of man, probably. So you permanently have renovated that land. It can never become salted again. It's forever. That's really, really good investment. How much will people pay for this machine if it will do what I just described? Nominally, they should be willing to pay 20 times more. That makes it really valuable. Okay.
Sorry, why is salt so harmful to...
Kills plants. Unless you have halophilic plants, they can't live. It just looks like a salt cake.
Only to farms, but what if somebody is looking to build a land? They don't care what kind of...
Yeah, actually, salted land is like, kills whole civilizations, Mesopotamia and all that gone, because of saltation. It literally killed, it'll drive people, people were committing suicide in Australia when I was there because of this problem. Suicide. Their farm was literally dying and they couldn't sell it, and there was nothing to do. It was just marching across 10 acres at a time. They couldn't do a thing. They were just, literally people were killing themselves.
So now that you extracted the salt, how do you create value out of the salt and sell it?
I mean, you don't. I mean, the salt is really a waste product in this particular case. But you had a good instinct, which is, hey, why don't I, yeah, of course, why can't I do a variety of different electric effects with this kind of device to create a standing wave where certain salts will separate from other salts? Because all of them have different differential affinity to the electron. Absolutely.
I thought that salt does accumulate over time. Because I know that like in Europe they grow wheat, and then later they grow barley because...
Well, you're hoping that the plant, like barley, barley, which is more resistant to
So
salt.
that's why, right? Because it's
Right.
all accumulated.
But it's these are
Couple
on
hundreds
those
of
levels.
years.
They're not in Europe where the rain is copious. They're in Australia where that's not the case. So salt is going to come to the surface and really kill you. So what I'm saying is how pervasive is desertification and saltation of soils? It's massive. In Australia, it's around $6 billion per year problem. So that means the government would do what with these machines? They would go wild, okay? So this is a very good market. Much better than producing just ordinary water. Well, water is useful, but it's only worth a few bucks, okay? So, good example of inventing. So A, you want to go where the problems are. B, you want to trick people into telling the problems, and more importantly, you want to recognize they always lie. If they didn't lie, they wouldn't have the problem, okay? And third, interestingly, okay, you can't stop inventing, okay? We invented the car block, right? Then we invented the way of making the equipment cheap. Then we invented things I can't tell you, which are cheaper. I mean, we invented and invented and invented and invented like crazy ones. You never stop.
Let's just say you have this idea, right? And you know it's going to work out perfectly, and the Australian government is just going to buy every single thing you have of this product, right? Would you actually approach them with the idea and ask them, okay, I can provide this to you, or would you actually make it first and then approach them, okay, here's the ready product?
Well, what you're asking is, what business method do I take this to the market?
Right.
Different problem, that's another type of invention. Someone recently asked that, I think, how does Gabby make money? And I said, you know, interestingly, the inventions that make us the most money are not inventions. There's no patents on them. Okay, they're pure business methods. Okay? And so, business methods are where the money is. Okay? So, we do invent, but you have to wrap your invention in business method. We're not going to be able to cover that today because that's so complicated. But you've gotten a sense that, for example, the invention as presented normally is usually quite lousy, but you can keep on looking at it and elaborating and building value by looking at it more and more deeply and having huge what's my background? I'm a soil physicist. Shit. PhD in soil physics. I have an advantage on me, okay? On this one. Okay? But I knew enough about solar cells. I know about capacity deionizing and water treatment. And you get it? There's a lot of horizontal domain knowledge hidden away. And you've got to have the business knowledge to create the model. Business method makes you money. The invention, this poor fellow invented this, went bankrupt. An extreme bad example of bad business method.
How did he get bankrupt?
He went bankrupt because he had inventing sickness.
So
He's
what-
actually the classic case. We've talked about him for years. I think you met her.
I met him
Years
a long
ago.
time ago.
Mhm.
So why didn't he try to sell his invention to somebody?
He was driven into the ground by forces. I don't even want to talk about it. It's really sad. It's really sad. I mean, this guy had one of the great inventions of all time, and now Unilever owns it, really. And it's really sad. I mean, but that's inventing sickness for you. Great inventions are often, inventing sickness is related to the myth Pygmalion. Okay, Pygmalion is a story of a sculptor who sculpts out the statue of a woman. And the sculptor builds the statue, and it's more and more beautiful every day. And he keeps on doing it and lavishing more and more attention upon the statue, and it gets more and more and more beautiful in his eyes until he's completely enraptured with what he's created. So enraptured, he cannot separate himself from it. He's completely attached. His being is expressed in this statue. This is what he loves. Okay? And eventually, he pines away to the point where he doesn't eat anymore. He cannot exist without the statue, and that's the story of Pygmalion. What did the gods do? They turned the statue into a beautiful woman. That's the happy ending. But the bottom line is, Pygmalion is the story of people who fall in love with their own creations to the extent that they become self-destroyed. That's the core of inventing sickness. And it's a sickness that occurs the better the idea. And if you don't think we don't see this all the time, I have a once in here, who has seen some serious cases of inventing sickness, right? I mean, I think you guys have seen a couple. Pretty bad, right? I mean, not you guys who don't do this kind of work for. We will just, you know, right? I mean, you know, you see some pretty bad series. Okay, so we have seen this all the time. Very, very, very serious problem. I think we talked about today a guy who had an X-ray machine. That's a very serious problem. Very amazing invention. I helped him invent it, actually. But interestingly, completely self-destructive. Cannot make a deal. Cannot separate himself. Okay? That's what this fellow did. This was a great invention. Truly a great invention. Okay? It's actually based on a very old discovery, but he really made it a much better invention. I won't go into the elaborate ways that he made this better. It involves some membranes that are in the center here that amplify the performance of the cell. You know, that's all detailed. You get the idea. Okay, so inventing sickness, that's the downside. And you see the business method. Business method is inventing deeply into the market to understand the problem deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Quite often redefining the problem. And B, recognizing that the problem is always alive. If Coca-Cola didn't phrase the problem the way they did, they would say, well, you know, as soon as we disperse the liquid as a micronic droplet, it's gone, right? It's not wrong, okay? All right. Everybody understand so far? Have I lost anybody? Okay. All right, so we do this for a living, and it's complicated. You can see why it may take you a few years to get it all in, right? Here in an evening, I mean, this is really getting kind of crazy, right? I mean, you have to learn a lot. Now, one of the things that I'm not going into is how do you build this inventing capability, right? Even if you're given the problem, will I be able to actually resolve it? I will tell you a few tricks. I normally tell you this, and then everybody goes, well, you did it, but I'm not going to do that, okay? And the problem is, most people do not become serial inventors in the manner that I did, because it's going to be too painful. And the reason is that I and this other fellow, J. Samuel Batchelor, invented a method that really will get you there, okay? And you probably all have the intelligence to do it. And because you're here in this room, you probably have the drive to try it. But this is how it works, unfortunately. You have to build this monstrous horizontal domain knowledge, okay? And of course, there's a million niches of silos all along the way. And the problem with the educational system that you're experiencing here is what have they tried to do? In high school, you studied Canadian history and English and you know, whatever, and science and math, and it was all very broad, and then you got into college and you narrowed it down a little bit, and then you're going to get a master's probably in chemistry. It's going to be much more narrow, and then you're going to get a PhD on the stereochemistry of heterocyclic compounds. Right, okay, it's going to get, how narrow is it going to get? Right, you just did my little thing.
Yes.
You may want to crawl out of that little niche and go that way, okay? But of course, when I mentioned that at Fusion, what the professors adjacent to me do, they freaked out. I mean, they freaked out. You may go listen to the man on my left. Stay in school, everybody. Okay. I'm not saying don't go to school. I did plenty of it. But what Sam Batchelder and I figured out is that will work. That to really be a great inventor, you need horizontal knowledge. And there's a reason for that. You cannot do great inventions because great inventions connect unconnected pieces of knowledge in entirely new ways. And disconnected pieces of knowledge are usually not in the same silo. By being in the same silo, they're connected. The problem is that big problems relate to really horizontal domain and the ability to pull something way out from somewhere else. My first job for Exxon, I'll tell you that, and you'll see how this works. They called us in, it was one of those inventing sessions. 6 or 7 inventors and a scientist from Exxon, and now in this particular case they had a one-way mirror. One-way mirror, we're going to be observed. And so they had a group of Exxon executives watching us. Well, who knows it? They might have had cameras drawing up, and they're watching us to examine how to do it, right? So here's the story. They have a new chemical plant in Texas, 6 stories tall, 6-foot diameter electromagnets. All the way up 6 stories, 60 feet. Big machine, $12 million, 5 years of construction, okay? And it's a magnetic system for separating chemicals. this new super duper technology, and you guys are here to tell us what we're going to do with it. Because we think we can do pharmaceuticals, we can do fine chemicals, we can do all kinds of neat stuff with this new machine. Before we find new markets for this, I think this machine has got a problem. What's that? Real nuisance, you know, there's always one guy in the beginning. Not going to let the whole thing go. The whole process is going to be held up by this one guy. The machine appears to be assembled upside down and inside out. And I'll show you. Went up to the board, same kind of chalk as this. In those days we didn't have. And 30 seconds. Machine's upside down, inside out, all wrong. You got $12 million in 5 years of effort, and it's doomed. You know what? Same thing as Coke. Could tell as soon as you see it. So they lied. The problem was not to find new markets. The problem was the machine was and fucked in a big way, because $12 million was probably an underestimate of how much money they put in, because that was just the one machine. How many R&D dollars had they put in? I don't even want to tell you. And it was upside down, inside out, and dead wrong. Yes?
How did you run quality
That's,
assurance?
I'm going to tell you the punchline. Why did I look at their machine and say it was upside down, inside out, and no one else ever did that? What were they? Exxon. What did they do? Chemical engineering. How many of them took biology? None.
Why didn't they hire a biologist?
Exxon? That's the immune response. Okay, we don't hire biologists. BP probably, right now is hiring some biologists. But now that planet Earth is being destroyed. But I mean, no, the problem is no one had done. And what happened there is they had the following. I always look for this. They had a machine that had 2 degrees of freedom. One was that the liquid moved in one direction, and magnetically they could move the adsorbent in the same direction. And so that kind of flow allows you to do very elaborate separations, except one little thing, that's called a simulated moving bed, where the adsorbent moves itself. It's not simulated, they really were moving it. So here's the problem with this technology. There's a problem. You don't do it that way. Go backwards. The adsorbent should go that way, and the liquid should go that way. Why? Because if I balance these in specific ways, the mobility of a particular chemical with a liquid and the mobility of that particular chemical on the adsorbent can be balanced. And if I put the chemical into the column, it can't move. What do we call them in biology? Who's a biologist? No biologist here either. Okay? It's called isomobility focus, electrophoresis. Electric field this way, liquid field this way, isomobility focus. It's how you separate proteins. Except for one little thing. These guys never separated a protein in their life, and they never were biologists. How much more powerful is this? If I keep on loading the chemical of interest in a wide range of impurities into this system, all the impurities head either with liquid or with the solid, but only one chemical probably has the unique property of moving that exact ratio. And so what can it do? It's isomobility focus. I move with the sorbent, I move with the liquid. I move with the sorbent, I move with the liquid. I can't really move. So if I keep on injecting and injecting and injecting this mixture, the chemical of interest cannot move and all the rest of the chemicals leave. So I concentrate and purify all at once. Oh my God, they missed that. Any biologist had entered the room in the last 5 years would have said, hey, why don't you do that? No. So they literally, in the way this thing was built, upside down and inside out. My machine was about 10,000 times more powerful than theirs. So I'll just do a funny ending of this story. A lot of money at stake. So it's over in about 5 minutes into the meeting. It's clear Evan's, they're screwed. One guy jumps up, and he's deranged, and he hits the glass and says, "Everybody out of the room! Everybody out of the room!" And they took everybody out of the room real quick, because this guy was really angry, and they all came piling out of it from behind the mirror and sat down with me and said, "Do that again." I did. Okay, you're going to sit and swap like here. And they realized they were doing it. What did they do? Can you invent that and give us the patent and rebuild the reactor and give us a contract? That was the first thing I ever did for me. So the point is, horizontal. It's a long story that's amusing, but we're all going to make a lot of money. But the point is, horizontal. Okay? Now, you're now back to you. What's the character of the training that a university provides? It becomes increasingly narrow, and it becomes increasingly focused. And that's good if they want to turn out good chemists, or good physicists, or good, American history guys, or whatever they're doing. But it's not good for turning out innovators. Innovators need horizontal knowledge. They need to know a lot, and they need to learn very efficiently in many domains. And so there are two things. My friend and I figured that out. And we said, you know what? We're going to break out of here and we're going to revolt. We're going to stay in school. But we're going to do something really crazy. Sam, you learn a new topic, completely bulk out of the blue, God knows what, every week. And I'm going to do the same. And we're going to get back together at the end of the week, and you're going to teach me what you learned, I'm going to teach you what I learned, and then we go out and do it over and over and over again until we have hundreds and hundreds of things we've investigated. Weird, crazy, idiotic things. Geology, biology, anything. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's history or, whatever. And what are we doing? We always call that building up arrows in our quiver. Hundreds of them, eventually thousands of them, where I would know something really obscure, and Vladimir probably knows, I sometimes will find something totally crazy, and he'll say, but I've never heard of this, right? So the point is, very, very horizontal domain, almost meaninglessly horizontal. Crazy! And we learned, now here's the thing, we learned that if you learned to teach the other guy, you remembered it. You never forgot it. The retention, we actually measured it, goes, what's the retention after you do a final exam 3 years later? Yeah, right. What's the topic? Come on, right? It's gone. But what would happen if I told you you're going to learn it and then you're going to teach it? And by accident, we had an accident. It was learned by accident, that when you teach it, you have to assemble the knowledge in a structured way and then output it. The knowledge goes into long-term memory and can never be gotten rid of. You're going to have 65, 70% years and years later. And that actually happened by accident. I went to a class, and like a big hall like this, one little guy there, professor shows up. I'm the only guy showed up. Unpopular class. So the professor looks at me, he says, I'm not going to teach you. You're going to teach the course. 3 lectures a week. You're going to come in and teach them. In what field do I do the most inventing? Water treatment. I love water treatment. Love water treatment. What field did I show up to class? Water treatment. All right, so what we figured out is if you teach, you don't learn the same way. If you teach, and if you have a partner that you're constantly teaching, and he's as good as you are, and he can teach, and you see how well I speak? I hope I'm speaking well. He was as good. And I said, you teach me, I teach you, I'm going to teach you real well, you're going to teach me real well, and you're going to double my input. Not double my output, double my input. He's going to teach me everything he learned that week in 2 hours, and we're going to do the same. And we did. Week for years. And after a while, we were loaded. So now, we were horizontal, and I mean really stupidly horizontal. And B, We had learned how to really keep it all. So we were horizontal and we were retaining everything. Not good enough. What's the second part? I told you, the subconscious. The only way to access that much information that you've gained over like 20, 30, 40 years, and actually in some cases I can say, Science Magazine 1977, it's like really well retained, okay, right? Is what? You have to have a training system for sorting it all through.
Recall.
You have to recall, but you can't do it. It's going to be subconsciously executed. You're not going to cognize, verbalize, literally say, well, let me think now. In 1981, was there anything that came? No, you're not going to do that, right? You can't verbalize it. You cannot cognize it. It's going to happen because it pops into your mind, and it's not going to be accidental anymore. And we figured out how to do that, where it's not going to be an accident. And what we figured out is that it really was a piece of your mind that you could access. And there's no way to control it except there was. Light again. There's no way to control your subconscious except because it's subconscious, right? But there is access to it. And when is there access to it? One way, I'll tell you the first way we tried it, is of course at night. You dream. It's meaningless, crazy, random sparking type dreams. But there's a piece of it where we found out something very simple. I have to tell you, there's a little drug involved here. If you take caffeine, you actually really will not be able to get deep REM sleep, right? You're not going to be able to go into deep sleep, right? And what we found is if you keep on concentrating, you can eventually actually hang on the edge. And there's enough consciousness that you and subconscious are coexisting. And you know what? Sam used to do it so beautifully. He could do anything but when he was in that state. He is famous. I've met people who met him and said, oh yeah, there's this guy, Sam Batchelor. I used to work with him, and people would go, oh my God, Sam Batchelor, I've met him, he's the... And the reason they're impressed is that he can do that. He can literally go away for like an hour and come back and say, okay, the answer is, you know who used to do this a lot? Enrico Fermi. I've heard millions of stories of Enrico Fermi doing this. But anyway, the point is, it's just an old trick. So what it turns out is, I'm going to tell you right now, you are not in control. And it's hard to say that to people who are probably scientists and would like to have control. In reality, the subconscious is going to do the hard lifting when it comes to inspiration. Many people will come to you and say, you know what, I went to sleep and I woke up and the answer was obvious. How many times I've seen that in biographies of inventors? Kekule. Chemists? Anyone? No chemists? No chemists here. Kekule, who invented really modern chemistry, there was a mystery, the structure of benzene. Right? And what happened? He dreamed of snakes. And the snakes he was having this nightmare. Snakes were coming at him, right? And suddenly all the snakes grabbed the tail of the snake, nested them in their mouth, right? And they all began to circle in a circle. And there were 6 snakes, and they had grabbed each other's tail. And he suddenly realized, what? Benzene is just a circle. That's what he claims. He's dead now. So Kekule, millions of billions of people have come, and they will admit, I didn't come up with this, I slept on it and it came up. And what we found out is that's absolutely true. Now, how could you do that consciously? That's the next step, and that's what we did. And so Sam and I actually did these exercises, and we did it. There's nothing more to it, I can tell you, it takes years to do, and that's the way it is, and it's hard to teach. The first part is learning. Just throw away the book. I'll tell you the truth, the way I learn, we do it with the students, right? We'll start a project. Shale gas, right? You have 3 days to learn everything about shale gas. How is horizontal drilling done? What are the frac liquids, right? What are proppants? What has everything to do with shale, right? We're going to have 3 days, we're going to learn it all, and we're actually going to resolve a problem in 3 days, or 2 days in that case, right? Okay, did we do it? Yes, we did. Start with the field. You never, ever looked at this field in your life, and how fast can you learn if you just set your mind to it? It's very easy when you have a specific problem. You will never forget shale gas, will you? No, you're never going to forget shale gas. Because you're never going to forget how someone lost $600 million in shale gas, right? Someone came to us and lost $600 million in a shale gas play. Wow! Were they stupid? Did we figure it out in 2 days? Yes, 2 days. It's easy. Scott did a great job. He found that map. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we do that over and over again, right? Compressed natural gas safety. Find out everything there is about compressed natural gas safety systems, right? More and more and more. How many of those do we do per week? 2 a week? Maybe 1, 2 a week, right? How many weeks will it take before you have like 300? And if you're working in a group, 600, or 1,000, or 2,000. And so when someone comes to you and says, I'd like to think of a way of producing gas from a structure, you're going to say, oh, like shale gas. Oh, yes. What you do is you drill down, you do a horizontal drilling, and then you frack it with a high pressure, with liquids that have the following characteristics of the gel, right? Yes, 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 yes. Now, we did an exercise. I used to demonstrate this. I won't do it too much now, but we used to do an exercise during interviews. And it's really kind of cool because it's called jungle eye. Okay? And one of the ways we used to do this is we would have an interview, and I'd sit down with a student. This happens in Western Ontario, it's the last time I ever did it. And what we did is we're sitting in a very sparse little room. 4 chairs, a table, a paint, some kind of picture on the wall, and that's it. It's a rug, that's it. It's a very sparse little interview room. It's a tiny little room. And you ask the student, what do you see in this room? Nothing. Painting, chairs, table. Good. Now, let's take the chair. Nah, this is a crummy little chair. No complexity. What do you see? Oh, it's got a little complexity. What is it? Use your jungle eye. What is it? What is the detail? It's curvy. Yes. Metal. Looks like a little plastic foot there. Plastic. Okay. I'm not going to look at the details, but here's the interesting thing. Every object in the room is not what you think it is. To you, it's a chair. What is the plastic? From the stand. What plastic is that? Polypropylene? Metal? Steel? Tubular steel? How is the metal formed? Touch it. How is it formed? How is the steel formed?
Extrusion.
Nope. Roll formed. What's the coating? What's the coating on this chair? On this metal? Powder, epoxide coating. Okay. What process made this chair? This top? What's that process known as? No. Thermoformed. Okay? What's the difference between you and someone who's gone through years and years of my kind of training? If I look at this room, my eye sees something totally different from yours. Everything in this room, I know what it's composed of. I know its chemistry. I know how it was made. I know the manufacturing equipment that made it. I know probably how to estimate the cost of making it. Okay? I know what temperature this epoxide coating needs to be cured in order to form a fusible coating onto this metal. Okay? I know what speed roll forming operates at. I know how thermoforming runs. I know that this polypropylene has a certain melt curve. Okay? I know everything about this chair that you don't. Everything that you see, the laminate top, what is the coating on the top of the laminate top? What is this white coating? Melamine. What is the glue that held this plywood together? Phenolic. Okay? Everything that you see and I see are totally different. I see things differently. Years and years and years of training and exposure allowed me to see my environment, and we call that jungle eye. And it's a term from Vietnam, which means the ability, when a soldier first arrives in Vietnam, what does he see when you go through the jungle? Chaos. Leaves, branches, vines, crash. I mean, it's just chaos, right? He sees nothing. What's the experienced guy see? There's a clearing about 100 yards off there. I can hear a village about 200 yards there. Watch out for that tree. It's a little poisonous. Don't rub against it. Everything. He's got jungle eye, right? He's got experience. My jungle eye allows me to know everything in my universe and see deeply every aspect of how it was made, the society that made it, very, very deep. Layer, layer, layer. What company made this epoxide? What's the chemistry of epoxide? It's a highly strained ring, 2 carbons of an oxygen. Do you know that? Okay? So everything, layer after layer after layer of knowledge. And what does that allow me to do? That allows you to invent at will. Because if you can mobilize that level of jungle knowledge, what can the guy in the jungle do? He can see and do things you wouldn't expect. So we used to demonstrate that in really, really dramatic ways in a very sparse room. And say, okay, how is the glass on the picture made? It's flip glass. How's flip glass made? Flip, 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 on and on and on and on. Every little object. Okay? Every little object. You would know the chemistry. You would know where it was mined. Okay? You would know everything. Okay? And that level of knowledge is intense and impossible to achieve because you're not experiencing that level of knowledge and that level of learning the way universities teach. Okay? But you can do it. And my friend and I decided to break out and just get rid of everything. And you know, there are a couple other guys I've met in my life who done it too. And every one of them said, university, waste. I'm not saying university is a complete waste. It's a nice place. But you're not going to do this as a business. Not the way I do it. Okay? And the reason is the level of knowledge building cannot be achieved using the methods you're picking up in college. This is a different method. We studied how you really learn in a big bad way at lightning speed and vast quantities. Pick up any topic at will and know the lexicon of every field. That, you meet professors, and you have a lot of respect for your professors, I'm sure, but that professor may only have knowledge in one rarefied area. He has no ability to operate broadly outside his niche. He's a nice, smart guy, but he's decided to become a cog in the Industrial Revolution that started around 200 years ago, but he's not playing my game. I am trained totally differently, okay? And I can demonstrate it real quick, okay? So, I mean, put me in a room, you're gonna know, oh, right, all right? Totally different. All right, so the point of this is going back to your lives. This came up in fusion. This is where the, all the little conflict grows. My question was, can you learn to be entrepreneurs? Yes, people become entrepreneurs, they don't have to do it as intensively as I have, right? But there's a couple guys out there, there's a guy named Nathan Malvo. Anybody ever heard of him? No? Nathan Malvo is the head of Intellectual Ventures. It's a nice $1 billion company.
How do you spell that?
Nathan, oh my God, how do you spell Nathan Malvo?
No, not Nathan at all.
Very complicated. It's like some radical language. I wrote it down because I felt I should mention it to you. I'll have to get back to you on that. It's very weird to spell. Okay, the reason I bring him up is he's pretty much trained like that. He's got about 130 patents and patent applications, and he, if you just look at him and look at an interview with Charlie Rose about a week ago, you'll see a very interesting gentleman. He will say the same things I do. If you don't horizontally train, you're doomed. They asked him, Nathan, I hear you're a great cook. Yeah, I love cooking. I hear you're a great physicist. Oh yeah, I worked with Stephen Hawking for years. I hear you're a great inventor. Oh yeah, I did this. And okay, what does that indicate? He's specifically trained horizontally. It's a radically different type of human being. Watch an interview with this guy, you'll be blown away. Okay? So, I guess what I'm saying is that I'm putting a plug in for the fact that maybe the university isn't a very effective way of learning. Because what Sam Batchelder and I decided to do was we were going to do two things. We were going to learn how to learn. And most people figure, oh, that will come naturally. They'll teach me. No, they won't. Okay? Most of what you learn in college is really mass-produced, right? Sort of like, hi, I'm going to stamp you out and send you on your way, right? Yeah, I'm afraid so. Okay? And that's rather disturbing. I know this is rather disturbing, and it's unfortunately the ending of this whole thing is, it's rather disturbing, but you may not be learning as well as you think you are, and most importantly, not within strike range of your capabilities. You have to be awfully ambitious, though, to decide, hey, I'm going to go and break out. I'm going to break the rules, and I'm going to do something totally insane. Okay? And that's what Sam Batchelder and I did. I don't think I would have done it alone, but there was another madman next to me, and if he's doing it, I'm doing it. Now, another thing is, it tends to be something that certain maladroit kind of disturbed individuals do. I would definitely say that when I was that age, I was definitely obviously disturbed, and Sam was too. You know, we didn't have girlfriends, you know. So what happened is that we had nothing better to do but go crazy, and we did. Okay? So I could go on and on about how we do it. There's endless examples of how we learned how to learn. But what we did is we really learned how to learn. And two things: how to learn with no limit on the horizon, and how to retain it all. If I don't retain it, how can I invent, right? I won't remember what I learned in the 20s, right? So you got to retain it. So you got to teach yourself to retain it. And most importantly, there's a simple method. And number two, you really have to set no bounds. Set no frickin' bounds. So don't say, I'm going to be a chemist, or I'm going to be a physicist, or I'm going to be this or that. If you want to do multi-business, you're going to do it all. It works very well. It's only we who limit ourselves. Most people come to me and say, you know, I'd love to be an inventor, but you know what? I hear over and over again, I just can't do it. I think I'll just go back to school. Most people just chicken out. It's very scary. Most people look at someone like me and they say, I'm a measured risk taker. That's probably required. Yeah.
Well, as much as I'd love to learn horizontally all the sciences, and I love sciences, but the matter of the fact is I didn't go into sciences. I decided to go into something easier, which was finance. So how do we, financial people?
I mean,
Or business students.
look, I make money inventing. But today, if you ask me how I'm making money, I'm making it mostly by financial modeling. Okay? So, I mean, to say a specific number, we made a I count the digits right, 8-digit number last year, profit, just doing finances. It takes no inventing knowledge. You, as an accountant, could figure this out. Okay? You can invent in anything you want. The most successful, I mean, after, like something like KX or something like that, the best inventions are probably going where the money is. What's the old famous bank robber? Why do you rob banks? Well, that's where they keep the money. So why do we invent financial models? Because, it's like Wall Street, that's where they keep the money. So if you really look at today, how we make money in the last 2 years, we're making more money on financial models than on physical inventions. So when I say invent, did I mention that you can invent anything? We've invented financial instruments. We've invented methods of trading.
Such as?